Genuinely believe one of the best ways to achieve anything is to simply believe you're going to get it. Sometimes I have no idea how I'm going to get from A to Z, but still prepare and make space in my life for it to arrive. It's crazy what God or the universe provides when you have faith and are truly open to receiving. And that was tweeted by Unsa Malik. Hello and welcome to Tuesday's episode of the Toy Talks podcast. I am a very zen and a very centered Toy Washington. First and foremost, I will say that my new MacBook M2 has been dispatched and it should be arriving in the next few days, and I'm just so happy. I'm actually quite relieved. I think a lot of you heard the frustration in the last episode of the Toy Talks podcast, but for those of you who follow me on social media, you will know that I came off social media for most of last week, only returning on Saturday. And I shared the reason why, and I had quite a few DMs. So I thought, actually, do you know what? I'm going to also bring it to the podcast. One of the reasons I came off social media is I was literally feeling like I was on the brink of a breakdown. And it felt like I was drowning. It's this overwhelming feeling of just absolute loss of control, and it felt like one thing after another. Like, you all know how much I pour into the Toy Talks podcast, and for my MacBook to be playing up, it was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I already know that I pile on so much pressure on myself, just from a career perspective and just as a person. And amongst the long list of things I have to do, I'm also having a wedding blessing. I'm managing my career and, as we all do, dancing in the circus that is the workplace and dodging all these clowns. And then on top of that, obviously, I've got my businesses as well. And the migration of Toy Talks has been, honestly, I think it's taken its toll on me, because I'm having to wait on other people and depend on other people to deliver what they need to do in order for me to deliver what I need to do. And I've had so many emails, so many DMs about people inquiring and just genuinely just wanting to have and manage their expectations of when they can have access to certain things. On top of that, every week I come here and do a podcast episode, and I don't just get on here and do an episode. I've got to scope it out. I've got to do the treatment for it. Sometimes I may even have to research a bit of information that I want to share on here as well. So I just kind of felt like it all got too much, and I still genuinely feel as though I'm still recovering from the last 2 years of burnout. Within the last 2 years, I've put out apparel, stationery, I've kept up with the podcast, the issues and the circus of work like we all have experienced. And I was consulting in more than one place. So I've worked the hardest I have ever worked in the last 2 years. And I'm still recovering from that. And there was a come to Jesus moment where I had to realize and accept that I'm still recovering from that burnout. And I'm piling on so much more things that I need to do. And it was just this feeling of drowning, and I couldn't catch a breath. I couldn't catch a break. So then you can imagine that I'm opening up my laptop and I'm ready to record, and then my laptop's playing up, and I know it's not my mic. Like, we all know it's not the mic. So I just had enough. And I've also had to confront a few of my own thoughts about the podcast. And I know how many women, and also as well, not just women, our fellow black men as well, who listen to the podcast and really support and learn from it as well. And I've had to really think about, am I still going to continue this podcast? Is it still needed in the way that it was initially? So, for example, I've now got a catalogue of episodes, now. So much so that when people ask me certain things, I'm able actually now to refer them to various episodes, and it's usually more than one. And whilst there is still material to record, I think it's also very healthy to take a step back and kind of do an audit on yourself and on your creative outlet, and ask yourself whether you are still adding the value in the same way. When I started the podcast, I didn't have in my mind how long it would go on for all I had in my mind is that I was kind of doing a mini podcast, if you like, on Snapchat. But the problem is with Snapchat, it lasted 24 hours, and there was clearly a demand for a podcast. And when I had done the Toy Talks Live in 2018, it was very apparent that in order for people to be able to refer to a body of work, there would have to be something more tangible than something that lasts for 24 hours. Hence the Toy Talks podcast being born. And I approached it very open, and it was a big step for me as well, because the comfort that I got from Snapchat is that it lasted for 24 hours, and it went, and that was it, you know. And there was that non-commitment from me as well. I was only committed to I was committed to uploading every day or every other day, but that wasn't true commitment. Do you know what I mean? And I struggled a lot with kind of like the Toy Talks platform and what it would require from me. I now know that, you know, I'm doing the Lord's work, and I now know that this is like my calling to do, and I recognise that. But it's like when I was an entertainment TV presenter and I was on Ben TV, and those of you who know my story know where I started, and I was travelling different parts of Africa, I was doing red carpets, signed by Hit TV, you name it, like the Tiwa Savages, Wizkid, Olamide. I've got pictures and interviews with all of them. So even back then, I knew that would come to an end, and I didn't know when I started, but it came to a natural end for me because I realised that it was no longer fulfilling me in the way that it did initially. Whereas with the podcast, I definitely feel as though it's not about me, it's about all of you. So I am fulfilled by the changes it makes in your career, your working life. I'm fulfilled by the knowledge that I'm able to share through the podcast. That's what fills my cup. That's what makes me full. And when you reach out to me, send me DMs, emails, dilemmas, you remind me of the why, you know? And I think it's very healthy to kind of do an audit check and make sure that, you know, this is still something that is needed or required. I'm never going to get up here and just talk for the sake of it. If one week I wake up and there's not an episode, I will even record to say there's not an episode. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I think one thing that I definitely struggle with is finding balance and balancing every single plate that is on the table, and it's a lot for me. I can sit here and say to you that the masterclasses are recorded. I can say they're good to go. The back end, I am told, will be ready on the 15th, Friday the 15th. So the view I've taken is Friday the 15th of July at 6 p.m. The new masterclasses will be live on the website, and those people who have already purchased previous masterclasses, if you haven't already, you will receive an email explaining how you will get access to the website to be able to now access Toy Talks Academy and download, well, not download, but basically have your own space within the website to be able to then watch masterclasses that you've previously bought, and have that create a dashboard so that you can watch those things. And again, you know, it's me creating the masterclasses, editing it, and having to trust like a web developer to be able to do the back end the way I want to. And it's been a lot for me. You all know, like, I don't hide the work that goes into what I do. And on top of that, I'm still kind of taking bookings. I'm still doing consultancies for businesses. And, you know, up until recently, I was managing a case for one of my friends, which is actually the meat of this episode. In managing my friend's case and negotiating a settlement, I knew that part of the reason why I needed to do it is to be able to bring it here to the podcast, because I know so many of you are going to benefit from what I'm about to say. Even more so because I saw a couple of the dilemmas in the mailbox, and it was like the ancestors were saying to me, Toy, it's now, don't put this episode off. I've entitled this episode Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, and I'm hoping that the title will stay unless the ancestors say something different. But before we get into the episode, last week was probably one of like a history in the making, one for the history books, insofar as Boris Johnson, and we've spoken about, you know, the Prime Minister of the UK several times on several episodes, not least during the global pandemic lockdown. We're still in a global pandemic. I'll come to that in a minute. Last week was so profound because we saw white audaciously, and I know audacitying isn't a word, but we're going to create words here. Boris Johnson literally had a cabinet revolt where his cabinet were resigning as the only way to make a stand to get him out. I'm telling you, if they didn't do that, Boris would still be there. But I'm not going to sit here and, you know, go over and kind of do a post-mortem of everything that happened last week. But what we are going to do is look at some of the learnings as transferable knowledge and skills into the world of work. Because being the Prime Minister is Boris Johnson's job. His cabinet are his colleagues. His workplace, well, I'll say that his main office is number 10 Downing Street. So let's not try and distance ourselves from what we're seeing in British politics from the workplace, because that's kind of what you see. You see treachery, you see disloyalty, you see indignance, stubbornness, ruthlessness, ruthless ambition in the world of work. And those are the themes that we saw last week as Boris Johnson basically was forced out of his job. It got to a point where, I'm telling you now, Boris had decided that it doesn't matter who's going to resign. He ain't going nowhere. And I'm telling you, it's that audacious audacity that got him the job in the first place. The problem that a lot of us have as black women is we don't have enough audacity because we're waiting for permission. Boris Johnson weren't waiting for permission, honey. He stayed, and he remained. Now, I call him Risky Rishi, but his name is Rishi Sunak. Former Chancellor of the Exchequer was the first to resign. 10 minutes later was Sajid Javid. And I'm going to be honest with you. As far as I'm concerned, it was planned. They tried to tell us it weren't planned. It was planned. Of course it was planned. What are the odds of Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and Sajid Javid, the Health Secretary, resigning on the same day, 10 minutes apart, without that being planned? Because collectively, that's single-handedly two of the most important people in the cabinet. And it then became a domino effect for everybody else. And what happened was, people will resign, Boris will replace. Quick. That's what happens in the world of work, right? When people resign, they're replaced. But the difference here is this was used as a tactic to oust Boris, because I'm sure the cause of his resignations within the Conservative government were very loud. There was a recent vote, and he still managed to stay by the skin of his teeth. But Boris, as far as I'm concerned, I think he's a disgusting human being. I can't stand him one bit. I think that his ethics, his morals don't even exist, so they can't even be in the bin. They're just non-existent. But there are a few things about his character that I do have to acknowledge. And it's his ability to not give a shit. It's his ability to just not give a shit. And I feel like if a lot of us had or adopted a bit of that, I feel as though we would be relentless in our pursuit of our own success. His not giving a shit is the reason why he is in power. Let's be honest, the only reason he didn't go sooner is because there's no visible successor. Rishi Sunak has been plotting to become the Prime Minister, in my opinion, for over a year. And I think when there was a lot of backlash on the way Boris managed COVID in the height of the COVID restrictions. I think the Partygate scandal, and I think every other thing surrounding any controversy around Boris Johnson, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, or the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, never really came to his defence, never really came to his aid. He just kind of was indifferent in a way that was really dangerous, because he's kind of his number two, or he is his number two. So you would expect him to wholeheartedly come out and support Boris, and he never did. His indifference disassociated himself from Boris. And then we saw this smear campaign, and it was a smear campaign levied against Rishi Sunak. And we have to all admit something here. I don't think Rishi, I call him Risky Rishi, but Rishi Sunak is by any means capable of replacing Boris. And I've got my own reasons for thinking that. But the smear campaign that was levied against him was questionable as to who started that. Because it was an attack on his wife, and they attacked, because I didn't know Rishi Sunak's wife was a billionaire. Like, I tried to call her a millionaire the other day, and Kay was like, she's a billionaire, you have to give her her titles. I was like, what? So you're talking about somebody, Rishi Sunak has no type of, in my opinion, he's got no proximity to what it is, in my opinion, to struggle. He's from wealth already. And we've all recently seen the video of him basically, I don't know, like kind of looking down his nose at the working class, because he doesn't see himself as a working class. And then they were talking about how he didn't declare that he had an active green card at the point that he took up office as the Chancellor of the Exchequer. And this all came out in quick succession. And Boris didn't say as much. And it just felt like a smear campaign. And I think it was because there was a lot of infighting within the Conservatives. And I think it was becoming very evident to Boris's camp that it was Rishi Sunak, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, but the Chancellor of the Exchequer at the time was probably earmarked to be his successor. And one thing we know about Boris is he will wipe out his opponents. And he'll wipe them out in the most cutthroat, strategic way. And part of this, and when I say Boris, I know that it's not just Boris, it's the people around him, but it operates, everything that we've seen in the last week operates like things operate in our workplaces. I think that a lot of your colleagues are out for themselves. When you really depend on them and when you really need them is when you will see whether they stand by the things that they've said, whether they have integrity. And in the case of Boris, I think, bar a few people, including Priti Patel, he didn't really have actual loyal people who actually genuinely supported his leadership. And we see that in the world of work, don't we? A successful manager is only as successful and only as, I would say, only as capable as the team that manager manages. So it's some managers don't know how to recruit. Some managers don't know how to manage. And I am going to talk a little bit about that because recently I have had my experiences and continue to have my experiences whereby a manager will hire you because they want the best in class. They want the best. But they don't want you to outwardly be better than them. But what they're not realising is you being the best at your job is a representation of your manager. And I tend to find that, in my experience, a lot of the doors that have been opened for me, a lot of like the senior roles and senior projects I've worked on, it's been white females, yeah? I tend not to work for white males as my manager. I'm going to be honest. If it's a white male manager, I won't take the job. It's very rare I take that job. I don't think I've ever had a white male manager. And that's just because of the violence that I've experienced and the trauma in the world of work that to be quite honest, if you're working in male, white dominated spaces, to report into one is its own trauma journey in itself. And I've had that at Goldman Sachs, and it was an experience I don't particularly want to repeat, because it's much of these organizations are like old white boys clubs. You're not ever going to win, and you may take them on and you may win from that perspective, quote unquote, but having to then work through that trauma is a lot. And we're going to get into that a little bit more as we get into the main bulk of this episode. I say all of this to say, when I have recently, you know, worked for a white female manager, yeah, you know, they will hire the best. But when a white female manager is threatened by you, it's obvious, and it's uncomfortably off-putting, because they'll seek to undermine you. So it's almost like they know you're best in class. They tell you, they know. They treat you like it is. And I don't know if, I haven't decided if it's a fully conscious thing in my experience and my recent experiences, whether it's fully conscious, but I'm going to say this. I feel like we don't afford white women the intelligence that we're supposed to afford them, because they weaponize white tears, and in that vulnerability, it's not about intelligence, it's about protection. Also fragile. White women are not as fragile as society would have us think. I think white women are not every white woman. I think some white women are extremely conscious to the power society gives them in making us look at them as if they're vulnerable. And that in itself gives them power, because they will tap into that vulnerability and fragility when they need to. And I'm gonna be completely honest with you, as I always am. There's no such thing as a perfect workplace. There's no such thing as a perfect manager. But I've come close to managers who are not perfect, but know how to manage to get the best out of me or out of the team. And then I've worked with managers who see me as a threat. So what they do is they undermine me. And the thing is, yeah, I used to kind of just kind of think that undermining isn't a big deal. But undermining you is actually a big deal, because it causes you subconsciously to second guess yourself, because you're always expecting to be undermined. And then that breeds not feeling good enough. So I have had to police that within myself. And I am a very confident person, I would say just generally, but from the perspective of work, I'm very confident in what I do. And I'm really open to learning, and I love to learn because it makes me better. I can't be a subject matter expert unless I'm open to learning. And it's acknowledging that in that learning, you become an even more exemplary subject matter expert. But I've also had to police my confidence, because it's taken so long to develop any type of confidence that I can trust. So when you're then working for white female managers, and that in my experience, the ones that seemingly hold themselves out to be allies, or seemingly act as though, or pretend to be good managers, when you dig a little deeper, what you tend to find is there is a lot of doubt as managers, because a lot of these people that have been made managers, they've got no business being managers, none whatsoever. And I'm not sitting here saying formal education is the be all end all, but let's at least have a bit of experience that would justify the position that they're in. Let's have something. And either they've cried their way to the top, because some managers, I don't know how they got there. So I have to believe that they weaponized their tears, and the strength of those tears cried their way to the top. And they get there now and they think, right, in order to stay here, I need best in class. So in my experience, best in class is us, often underestimated. We work 10 times as hard, we educate ourselves, we have the experience, we come to the table with a lot of substance. So they know if you want the best, you have to come to us. Then they get the best, and then it's a control thing. It's a control thing. I think they undermine us as a form of control. Because why else would you undermine somebody that you know is best in class at what they do? Why would you do that? Because undermine the ability to undermine staff actually demonstrates the lack of ability to be a manager. Because a real manager inspires, progresses, promotes, encourages. That's what a real manager does. And for me, I've always said I wasn't ready to manage and I didn't want that responsibility. But I'm starting to also realise that in as much as I'm worried about that responsibility, that's probably what will make me a good manager, because the level of selflessness required to be a manager, to do all those things I've just mentioned, to encourage, to inspire, to do all those things, requires you to also be confident in yourself and not look at other people as a threat. How many of us as black women are tired of white women looking at us as though we're a threat? You bloody hired us. You hired us. What is this? If you didn't want us in your spaces, don't hire us then. But you're hiring us because you and I know that we're best in class at what we do. But you want us to do it, but you don't want us to do it. Make up your mind. Make up your motherfucking mind. Make up your mind. I keep telling you all, no workplace is perfect. You're not going to find a workplace. I'm sorry, it doesn't exist. There's always going to be some type of flaw. But I really do appreciate a really good manager. And I think it's because of my experiences with Deborah. I think it's my experiences with some of my other bosses who I think were not only inspirational to me, and they inspired me to be the best because I saw them in those positions and I saw how hard they worked. But having really bad managers has made it clear to me the qualities and the requirement of what a real good manager needs. Because I feel like we have a lot of fake managers. It's very rarely you meet a real manager. Some people are fake because they're just in title alone. The actions don't demonstrate anything managerial. It's just in title. We're throwing around their titles like penises. Seriously. Like I said, I get a lot of messages in my DMs, and someone asked me a question a few weeks ago, and the person said, Toya, I really, want to connect you with someone because they do like women empowerment brunches, and they would like me to be a speaker at a women empowerment brunch. And I was like, yeah, that's not gonna be me, honey. And she says, why? I said, because I don't want to engage in cold salads, smelly coleslaw, and bullshit. I've been to those women empowerment where you wear the suit jacket and the button, you can't close the top button, only the bottom. It's bullshit. It's crap. Sorry, but it is. Not sorry. I don't personally believe in women empowerment brunches or women empowerment things, because it basically says that women are not empowered already. Every woman is empowered. It's about what you do to awaken that within people. So for me, I feel like the Toy Talks podcast doesn't empower. It awakens the power already in you. I'm not here to create that power. Who am I? I believe that as black women, we have that power inside of us. But the thing is how we unlock it, how we train ourselves to have that power, how we train ourselves to keep that power. And it's through knowledge. It's through example. It's through encouragement and sharing. it isn't from me going to these women empowerment brunches and charging you an exorbitant amount of money, pretending to network, and then send a couple of messages on Facebook, post a couple of women standing in a circle. That's not women empowerment. That's a whole load of bullshit. A few years ago, and it was when around the time I came out of Big Brother, I think it was in the first few weeks of coming out of Big Brother, and I had a lot of like contractual commitments before I kind of walked away from everything. And there was this one company, and I had done a bit of work for them, and they basically invited me to a women empowerment brunch, and I kind of thought, okay, cool, I'll go to this thing. Now they invited me. A few days before, I got an email from them. They says, Toya, we're going to send you the link for the invoice. I was like, invoice for what? They were like, oh, we charge for our women empowerment brunches. Now, one thing with me back then is I really hated shame. And I never wanted people to think that I wanted something for free, because I never did. I'm not that person. If you know anything about me, you follow me, you know I don't do freeness. I'm not into that. I would rather pay so that you don't hold me over a barrel. And this is the reason why when it comes to brands, I haven't had as much brand sponsorships as I should. Believe me, I have had a lot of inquiries. But when I balance off what they are willing to pay versus what they want, versus what they want me to relinquish, I'm not doing that. I'm so sorry. I have creative control, creative freedom over my platform. I'm not going to have you come to tell me what I should do because you paid. No. You think because you paid the piper, you have to play the tune. No, then keep your pipe. I have my own piper. Yeah. Anyway, so I ended up paying, and I remember around that time, I just couldn't, I didn't really have the money to afford this thing. So I ended up paying, and I got there, and I don't know what is it about women empowerment brunches. Everyone's wearing high-waisted trousers and tight blazer jackets. It was just weird. And me, I was one of them. The chicken always have chicken leg in it. That chicken leg was cold. You know when the chicken leg has been out for a long time, the skin starts to shrivel. And then they had this coleslaw, and I know what they did is they went to Sainsbury's. No, they went to Tesco's. Then got the coleslaw, mixed it up, put it in a bowl, and then put one of these, you know, them placement cards that says coleslaw to make it look posh. It was shit. It was actually very shit. The salad was so cold. You know when it's cold, like they put it in a freezer to maintain the green of the lettuce. It was just shit. And then the drinks, oh my god. And then everyone's just there, you know, they're talking. And I'm thinking, but what are you actually taking away from here? Like, what is it on a practical level that you're taking away that you never had when you walked in here? So maybe you had that power in you, but you didn't have the skills to be able to awaken it. Have you taken those skills away from here? No, you're not. It was just shit. It was like these entitled, self-obsessed, and I was just looking at them, and it was weird. I just don't know why they invited me to this. I feel like they invited me just so they can say Toya from Big Brother attended. I felt very used. And again, you know, it was around the period I'd lost my father, so I was just trying to figure out myself and whatever. But I just do not support women empowerment brunches. They're shit. I'll say read, but it's true. Don't invite me to any, because I ain't coming. Yeah? Don't invite me. Because actually, if you invite me, I'm going to send a link to this episode, and I'll give you the time frame that I'm been speaking about it, and it will be sent. Don't invite me to that shit, because every black woman has power inside of her. Every black woman. If you are going to do anything, let it be the providing skills to awaken that power, so black women can go out and do, you know, so black women can go and walk in their purpose. Give people the practical tools to be able to flourish in their purpose and who they are. Like women empowerment brunches, are we not bored of them? It come like house raves. We're all bored of it. You all outgrow it. Like, stop it. And I also think as well, you know, people say, oh, it's for networking. But then I just think to myself, well, how do you know that when you go there, you're going to get what you need from a network? Do you know how many networking things I've been to? And I ain't contacting no one back. This is more back in the day. You can't get me out of my house to sit for these things. Don't invite me. I don't care if you're paying. I'm not doing the women empowerment. I'm so sorry. No, thank you. Let's create actual tangible assets so that black women alike can just be able to flourish in who we are. Creating these empowerment things is a money-making business. That's how I look at it. I'm not going to empower you. You're going to have to empower yourself, because I'm not going to be here forever. And neither is the podcast, and neither is the platform. We're not going to be here forever. So if I'm able to give you tools and knowledge, you'll be able to use this far, far past the Toy Talks podcast. And that ultimately is my goal. I want to see more black women walking in their purpose. I want to see more black women knowing how to navigate the world of work. I want to see more black women in senior positions. I want to see more black women holding CEO, CFO positions. I want to see more black women dominating what would be perceived as the normal white male dominated industries. I want black women to have access to, not tokenism, I mean full access rights in the same way that white people do, Asian people do. I want us as a black women and as a community to have access to those things too. Because we can't sit here and say, oh, it's because of education. Half of these white people in these positions are not educated the way they're telling us to be educated. It's not about having a seat at the table. Let us all stand, but let us be able to all enter the room to be able to stand. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm fed up of this subservient behavior and attitude. I'm really fed up of barriers to entry. And the biggest barrier to entry, I'm sorry, tend to be non-black people, because some of them don't want to see us there. And I think it goes back to colonialism. It stems from racism, and it goes back to control. And I feel like if as a community we're able to share our experiences and share our wins, we weaken the control of non-black people who are committed to keeping us oppressed. So, all in all, it has also been announced that the new leader of the Conservative Party will be announced on the 5th of September. And the reason that is quite an important date is whoever is the new leader of the Conservative Party will therefore be the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. There will be no general election or anything because the Conservative Party are in power. And the front runner is Rishi Sunak, who was the former Chancellor of the Exchequer. And apparently Priti Patel has put her name in the hat. I'm very terrified, I've got to be honest, because we are currently in a cost of living crisis. The COVID cases and COVID numbers are going up, as I told you it would 2 episodes ago. They're talking about the reintroduction of face masks that they should have never removed in the first place. They're talking about the NHS, the admissions going up, and therefore putting pressure on the NHS. So there probably are going to be some restrictions. I know quite a few people who have COVID for the second time, a couple of people for the third time. There are 2 variants of concern that are now more prevalent than Omicron. So I'm going to just give a piece of advice, and the advice I'm going to give is don't wait to be told to be prepared to get prepared. Yeah? Make sure you start stocking up. Make sure you start putting contingencies in place in case this ends up being a very difficult winter, because the true test of living with COVID is going to be this winter. We as a country, a lot of us don't believe in the booster, and part of it is because you don't believe in the government. There's no trust in the government no more for a lot of people. And I don't speak for everybody, I speak for some. I am some. Yeah? So I would definitely say it's important, they're talking about retesting and introducing lateral flow devices free of charge again. So basically, all the things that they've scrapped that would have protected us and being able to use as a mitigation to the 2 new variants, they're now reintroducing. But the problem is with people, if we taught them how to wash their hands, you gave 2-minute video how to wash their hands, then you told them live with COVID, you told them to live with their bullshit again, you told them to live with their bacteria. How are you going to recondition these people now? I still see people picking their nose, itching their bum. I still see people scratching their armpit. And when they scratch their armpit, they sniff it. Yeah, on the train. Anytime I go to London, I see all this shit. You're talking people living with COVID. These people think it's called living with bacteria and dirts. These are the same people that are asking, how do you use soap? One woman was saying that she used the soap to put in different orifices of her body. This woman doesn't know that you lather up the soap, put it on a sponge or a scrunchie, and to bath. We're teaching people again how to re-bath. They don't want to bath. These people want to use the same bath water for the whole week. So I don't know, but I'm just please heed my warning. Start preparing for winter now. Okay. So now let's move on to the main bulk of this episode. So I don't know how many of you have heard of ACAS. So ACAS effectively gives employees and employers a free impartial service of advice. They act as mediators, and basically before you go to an employment tribunal, you have to go to ACAS first. And the reason you have to go to ACAS is, number one, it's a prerequisite before going to employment tribunal, and it's to demonstrate that you've exhausted every opportunity to try and resolve your employment matter. So for example, ACAS is there to mediate, to find some type of amicable solution to an employment issue or dispute. It could be race discrimination, sex discrimination, you name it. Any work-related issue, you have to go to ACAS to try to settle it first, because the court sees it as an opportunity for both parties to save court costs. And also remember, employment courts, they go on for a long time. That's a lot of time, a lot of money, and also as well, you know, a lot of disputes are down to, you know, the other side not agreeing and back and forth, and sometimes you need an impartial mediator to try and assist the parties to find a solution. So if you want to know what ACAS do, they have a website, www.acas.org.uk. A few episodes ago, I shared with you all that I had a friend, and she'd been working for a particular organisation for just shy of 2 years. And she works on a bonus structure, so she gets paid a salary, and there's a bonus structure because of the type of industry she's in. They work from like a bonus, they have a bonus structure that's quite prevalent in her particular industry. Now, this friend of mine is legally trained, but doesn't practice law. And actually the organisation and industry she's in has nothing to do with law, as much as it is with most people that, you know, they train in one area, study in one area, and then, you know, they do something else as a career. In any case, when she started her employment, they didn't give her a commission structure. Yeah, what they did was they used it as an opportunity to abuse a commission structure. So every time she did a sale, they would find a reason to not give her her commission. Or if they did, they gave her the percentage that they wanted. And again, when she signed her employment contract, they made reference to a commission structure, but she never got it. And my thing is, if you make reference to something in your employment contract, when you give it to me, I need to see all the appended documents. I don't sign an employment contract when you refer to a document that's not even included. I'm not going to sign. Because if I sign that without seeing it, I'm just agreeing to something I can't see. And also, when we're talking about a bonus structure, you need to know how that bonus is structured and what is required of you to be able to unlock those bonuses. And I shared with you also that when she had got external advice about a commission structure, she was told that, and quite rightly so, that organizations can't abuse bonus and commission structures. So for example, they use the term, at the organization's discretion. And that's how they use it as a get out clause to give you the bonus. But the thing is, if you have a clear commission structure, you can't rely on your discretion, because if I'm fulfilling everything in that structure, you can't then say, I can't get it, because then that's an abuse of power. And you could actually sue for unlawful deduction of wages. So when my friend came to me, there was a lot of things that were a cause of concern, but then had pushed her to make a formal grievance complaint. So I'll give you an example of a few things. So when she passed, I can't say when she passed actually, her probation period was 3 months. And the feedback of her probation, she wasn't too happy with it. So she wanted to have a discussion. So they put some quite ambiguous things within her probation period. But nevertheless, she had passed it. But it was a matter of whether she was willing to sign and accept certain things. So she wanted to reword a few things and challenge a few things before she signed it, quite rightly so. So she sent an email that ended up kind of avoiding her, and it was never actually addressed. And as time continued, it was almost like my friend saw it as, she didn't want to challenge it too much. But then she started having issues then with her bonus not being paid, or the organization trying to get out of paying her, or then if they pay her, they won't pay her the full percentage that they had tentatively agreed at offer stage. Can you see the problem? To add to this, she had like a performance review, and she didn't end up counter-signing the performance review. So what happens is they'll do a review at the end of the year, and then you'll sign to say you agree with whatever. And as things started transpiring and she was continuing on with her employment, she started to ask for certain documents, and she started to push for certain documents. So she went to HR and she said to HR, please can you send me my recent performance review, because I haven't signed it, and I've been told that it's been filed. My line manager said it's filed. How can you file it without my signature? So HR are unaware of what's happening on the ground. So they end up sending my friend a copy of her performance review. It had her initials as her signature, but it wasn't her writing. She then asked for her probation letter. When this was sent to her, again it was signed, but she didn't sign it. It's not her signature. So now we have fraud, and fraud is a criminal offence. Let's just park that. Her line manager started making her job hard for her, and at that point my friend got in contact with me and she said, Toya, I know you have a platform and you send to black women, and quite rightly so, and I don't want to take you away from that, but I need your help. This is the issue. So we had a conversation. The conversation was at 4 hours, and she had a burn folder. And within this burn folder was all the things that she had managed to gather throughout the year and 9 months of her employment. It also included, within the burn folder, her manager basically encouraging her to be dishonest in the pursuit of sales, alluding to offering bribes to potential customers. This is all written down, so it's not he said, she said, and the inferences were there. So they may not have said do this, but they inferred it, and then they encouraged her to do things that were quite questionable in the pursuit of those sales. for example, they'll say, you need to offer this person XYZ. And she will say, but that's against company policy. And they'll say, well, that's what we've asked you to do. But when they ask her to do it, they ask her verbally, they never write it down. Then when she responds, like summarizes it, and she sends them an email, obviously they will respond acknowledging what she said. There's the audit trail. So when they're initially asking her for something, they don't write it down. So it's just she said, he said, her word against theirs. Then when she has the good sense to then email them as a follow-up, that's when she gets the audit trouble, because then they respond and then they will say certain things. Yeah? No problem. There was one day where there was celebrations in the office, and long story short, her line manager had come into the office and started to take pictures of my friend's bin, and it was witnessed by 2 members of staff. And inside the bin was 2 bottles of champagne. So basically, her line manager was trying to say that she was drinking on the job during working hours. Now, she then took these pictures, this line manager, and sent it to HR. They tried to do disciplinary. They called it a gross misconduct. So then, my friend got the 2 witnesses to do a witness statement. And in that witness statement, it was that 2 clients had come in to celebrate the sales. And my friend don't drink. So when she said, well, if you want to drink, it's up to you, but I'm not drinking. So they ended up opening the champagne. They drank 2 bottles, by the way, between 6 people. Then my friend, at the end of it all, then emptied the contents of the remaining alcohol in the champagne bottle in the sink. When she emptied it in the sink, she then put the 2 bottles in her bin. That's how they came in the bin. Then my friend took pictures of medication that she was on, which meant that she could never have drunk the alcohol because she was on that medication. Do you know, within 2 weeks, they withdrew the gross misconduct claim. So you can already see that the employment tenure is getting a bit techie. They then started to criticize her performance. But how can you criticize someone's performance when they're the highest sales person, that they bring in the highest revenue of sales? This is not he said, she said, it's documented. So my friend started to gather her evidence. So anytime they had sales meeting, performance, she would always download the pack. She'd always put in her burn folder. And I didn't know that all the while that this is happening, she's listening to the Toy Talks podcast. So she's knowing to do these things from the Toy Talks podcast. But it came to a head. It came to a head when the fraud, she found out about the fraud, and when she challenged how much she was being paid. And I think she didn't manage it very well, in the sense that you don't just sign a contract and then rely on things said at an interview and hope that they're going to fulfill what induced you to take the job. If it's not in the contract, it's not legally binding that they would then honor what they said. So when she was interviewed, the manager at the time told her she's going to earn, for example, I don't know, 40,000. But her contract only said 30. But what was agreed, and it is in an email, is that after her probation, her salary would then go up to 40,000. In her employment contract, it does say, it makes reference to a salary increase when she passes her probation, but it didn't quantify it. In fact, the employment contract is very, very badly written. It's a very poor employment contract. And my friend had signed this on good faith. She did. On good faith. So obviously now she has the issue with the probation because she doesn't agree with certain things. But for all intents and purposes, you know, her employment has continued on the basis that she's passed. But obviously she's still thinking that she's going to be having a dialogue about the contents of the probation review, not knowing that it's already been filed with a false signature on it. So her thing is, if I've passed my probation, because at the time she didn't know there was a false signature, clearly you believe I've passed my probation because I'm still here. So you need to then increase my salary to what I was promised. That's the first thing. The second thing is, now she knows it's been signed. Now, whether she signed it or not, the fact is they've still filed it as signed. So the conversation about a price increase should still happen. So by the time she came to me, she had her evidence, everything. And I said to her, I want to see all the emails that you've sent challenging all these issues. And there was a few more issues that were a bit more kind of specific to her, which I don't feel comfortable speaking about. Even though she knows I'm here talking about this, I don't feel comfortable because I don't think it's necessary. I just need you all to know that they're all employment related. Anyway, she had sent them email back and forth and everything. And then she got to a point where she got frustrated because they're not moving, they're not budging. They've got her over a barrel. She wants to leave this workplace, but she feels like she can't because she basically, in order to get to the next step within her industry, she needs to drive. So she's still doing her driving lessons. So her whole plan was that she would stay there for about 2 years, pass her driving test, and then move on. So in her head, all these things are happening and she ain't ready yet because she's still got a whole load of things that she still needs to tick off within this employment. And one being, she needs to sort out her, pass her driving test. And I get it. Those are her levers. Those are the reasons why she's staying. I do have to say that my friend is extremely good at her job. In fact, I will go on record to say she's a subject matter expert. She's phenomenal. But this organisation, I say this, and I say this because of the fraud that was done. This organisation is corrupt. From the top all the way down. Corrupt. And then her line manager is obviously aligned with senior management. So she danced to the tune that they play. Even though she can see a lot of what is happening is wrong. But they use her line manager as a puppet to try and control her. And there were several occasions where her line manager was told to try and convince her to withdraw certain things. So the last email that my friend had sent before she had come to me was very emotive, very angry. I read it and I said to her, listen, I understand where you're coming from here. I understand why you're emotional. It's draining. Every time you do your job and you do it well, you're not getting the reward, the financial reward that you were told you were going to get. You've got a flaky employment contract. You haven't received your bonus structure. I says, but before you get angry with them, you need to hold yourself accountable. I says, you are legally trained. I don't understand how you could sign an employment contract like this. I said, there's not even a date there of the employment contract. There's not even a basic date. So obviously she had sent me the employment contract, everything. The last email that was sent. So I said to her, listen, you've got a case here. You've got a case for unlawful deduction of wages. You've got a case for harassment and bullying. I said, but you don't have a case for racism, because she said that she felt like they were discriminating against her because she's Eastern European. I said, but on what basis? And she said, but they don't treat white people in her workplace like that, and they don't treat black people in her workplace like that. I said, how do you know? She said, well, I think I said, stop there. You think, where is the evidence? She don't have evidence. I said, just because you're going through something doesn't mean nobody else is going through it. But if you're calling it racism, I said, that's big. I said, you need to go and research the definition of racism. You need to go and research it. Because the power dynamic required for racism to exist, I'm sorry, in this case, I don't see it here. I says, let's not convolute issues here. And I think the racism was more from a motive standpoint. I don't think there was any actual logic to it, because I said to her, show me, and she couldn't do it there. But everything else, when I asked her to show me, she could show me. Harassment is there. So for example, when she made her first complaint about the bonus structure, they started bombarding her with emails. You could tell that the tone of her employment had changed. She was getting emails at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then at 9 a.m. being asked, where's the response? But you know that she doesn't start until 9:30. So that's harassment, yeah? And we could evidence that. So I said to her, if you want me to help you, then you have to allow me to advise you, and you have to take what I say. You have to tell me how you want this advice to work. If you want me to manage this, I can assist you in managing it, but you must listen to me. If you're not prepared to listen to me, I'm not prepared to deal with this. Because what I'm not going to have you do is undo what I'm trying to do, because I'm looking at this with no emotions, and I'm looking at this fast forward. I'm already anticipating a few things. Little did I know that my friend received a response to her last email and then responded. And a few days after she asked me to help her, she called me and confessed. I said to her, that is the last email that you send without talking to me. She says, Toya, I'm going to take them to Employment Tribunal. I'm going to sue them, this, that, and the other. And don't get it twisted. My friend had a very strong case. She had a strong case because she was able to get in contact with her ex-manager, who we found out was paid off by the organisation for similar things. He signed a non-disclosure agreement, but he has an axe to grind. So he basically told her where some of the bodies were buried. And when I say that, I mean that as a figure of speech, i.e. where their issues within the organisation sat, and where the evidence was to correspond with certain things that were linked to her complaints. Anyway, so my friend made a formal grievance complaint, and she included the fraud, the harassment and bullying, the victimization in the workplace. She also included health and safety concerns. So, for example, they're supposed to have a panic alarm and a panic alarm in the office, and they're meant to be trained on a panic alarm every 6 months. That was never done. When she raised the health and safety concern, this was ignored. So you know what we did? We put it in our grievance complaint, because in not dealing with the health and safety concern, it's an act of bullying, because it led to her feeling unsafe. The silence was a deliberate attempt to harass and bully her into withdrawing her complaints. So what they did is they used the lack of security as a weapon against her. And that's how I drafted it there. Otherwise, why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you put the panic alarm in the office? Why wouldn't you do what you said according to your policies? Because I said to my friend, I want the health and safety policy. Like, I asked her for certain policy, I want certain things. She sent them to me. And then I quoted the policy, the reference. This is policy gaga, policy gaga, policy gaga. Yeah, I read it all there. This was a 2-page grievance complaint. Because my friend had almost 2 years worth of issues. And I said it to my friend, how this is going to end, you better learn from this. Because I'm not going to come here to do this again with you. I'm not doing it again. Because part of the reason you're in this problem is because of choices you decided to make. They fucked up, and instead of you to hold them accountable before you signed, you're holding them accountable afterwards. Your conduct is acceptance of their bullshit. Your conduct is acceptance of their bullshit. She says, what conduct? I said, the conduct of continuing in an employment, signing and continuing to accept this issue within this employment. After all, they referenced a bonus structure. It wasn't in the contract. You still signed it. So that means you signed up to terms that you didn't see, and that means you were happy with it. You didn't read your employment contract properly and you're legally trained. What's all this? When she did the grievance complaint, the only thing that was upheld is the salary increase to 40,000. And remember, I'm just using 40,000 as an example. I'm not going to share her salary here. So she then requested, obviously, give me the bonus letter, the commission structure letter. Give it to me. They refused. They didn't uphold anything else in that grievance, just the salary increase. My friend sat down with me. She says, Toya, I want to take them to Employment Tribunal. I said, let's meet up. So I met her in her offices. Everybody had left. I went to her office. I sat down with her. I said, do you want an honest conversation? She said, yeah, I want an honest conversation. I trust you, Toya. I said, okay, cool. I said, your probability of success is 90%. But your probability of success with your behavior is 50%. You're too emotional. You don't listen. If you want to take this all the way, you've got to understand a few things. Employment Tribunal is not child's play. It will literally drain everything inside of you. So your objective shouldn't be to go to Employment Tribunal. Your objective is to get a settlement. That should be your objective. Employment Tribunal should be the last resort. I says, getting a settlement will enable you to see a couple of things. She said, what? I said, well, you have to go through mediation even before you get to Employment Tribunal anyway. It's a requirement. Before any employment case is taken, then you must go to mediation to try and resolve the issue out of court. That will be a test to see what evidence they have, how far they're willing to go, and it will give you a true indication of your chances of success at Employment Tribunal. You have to use ACAS as the test. So, my friend then made an application to ACAS, and it was done over the phone. It wasn't face to face. So when I say over the phone, she was assigned a case handler or a mediation person, whatever you want to call them. And basically, she gave her claim. She had to fill out, is it a COT3 or no, not COT3 or COT1? I can't remember. There was a form that she had to do. I'm so sorry, I can't even remember. So in that form, she basically took the entire grievance complaint and basically dragged and dropped it in this formal complaint and used their structure to send it. Every stage she will call me. So the mediator was the go-between, but the mediator wouldn't say, it kind of wouldn't say what the other one said. Do you understand? It would just be like a exchange of documents more than anything else. And the mediator never gave advice because that's not their job. Their job is to find a compromise. It's not to advise. Now, she was asked by the mediator if she got a lawyer. My friend said, I'm consulting somebody, but I don't have a lawyer and I don't want a lawyer. I'm happy with the person I'm consulting, which is me. And the other side had a lawyer. So my friend was worried. She was very intimidated because they had a really good law firm. They did. And I said to my friend, it's all smoke and mirrors. They have to have a really good lawyer because they have a lot of bullshit that needs to be patched up. So they need to get the best lawyer to patch up their bullshit. But that lawyer needs to tell them about their chance of success. And the only way that they're going to get a measure of their chance of success is using this mediation to assess it. Now, I need to pause something here. When my friend did her grievance complaint, My friend was done with the job. She was done. Because I said to her, the further you go into this, the less tenable it's going to be for you to retain your employment. Because now what you've done is you've taken it from the confinement of the office and the employment structure. You're now taking it to a more formal process, mediation, potential employment tribunal. So I says your tenure is going to become untenable. Are you in a position whereby you may not be able to work there anymore? She says, Toya, I will be here until the day they ask me to go. Now, the reason I said that to my friend is, if they made it so untenable for her to stay and she would have to tender her resignation, what she will also include in her grievance complaint, or what she will include in her complaint to ACAS or the Employment Tribunal, is constructive dismissal. So I just needed to mentally prepare her for that aspect of things. So when she did her formal grievance complaint, she also shared elements of what is in her burn folder to support the claims that she's made. She said, Toya, I'm willing to burn the house down. I've got nothing to lose now, because they're not even paying me my bonuses. They've agreed to increase my salary, but they're now also telling me that they won't increase my salary for another 3 months. So you can see that my friend had no choice but to take it further. So let's go back now. So they're going back and forth in the mediation process through ACAS. Bearing in mind, my friend has a statement from an ex-colleague, so somebody that she was working with. When I say working with, they were literally, the desks were next to each other. She also have a statement from her former boss. So somebody who had left, the one that I told you that they settled him out of court. And then she's got all her other evidence. Now, when she was doing the grievance complaint within the organization, her colleague Zara, she was very close to Zara, and the thing is, Zara was leaving anyway. She'd handed in a notice, but before she'd handed in a notice, Zara was very close with my friend. So things that were happening in the office, things that Zara overheard, she would always tell my friend. And Zara obviously also gave a statement as well in terms of her experiences, etc., etc. Remember I told you that I had that conversation in my friend's office. I also told her in that same conversation, all these people giving you statements, all these people calling you up, asking what's happened. I said, let me tell you something. The true test of all these colleague integrity is as you go through this process, and you're going to have to lean on them, for example, to come to court. Yeah, because just because they're giving you a statement, they may need to be cross-examined by the other side. I said, secondly, the judge has to also see Employment Tribunal as a reliable witness. So they may need to ask questions directly to those ex-employees. Because as it stands now, we're going through this mediation. Zara's not an ex-employee, she's still working there. And effectively, you're making her job or her notice period untenable. So I'm just letting you know that all these people that are around you at work, they may not be around you throughout this process. True to fact, that's what started happening. You know, there's people that were calling her before, now she'll call, they don't pick up. Yeah, because they're trying to protect their job. But her and Zara are really close because they started at the same time. They started like maybe the same month. You understand? Started at the same time. So for her, Zara was her strongest witness. Strongest witness. So I said to her, with the Zara one, you don't have to share that yet. You don't have to share that yet, that you have that evidence. It's in your burn folder. Relax. Relax. Anyway, back and forth mediation. And my friend will call me everything that was happening. I was advising her, I was supporting her, but more importantly, I was giving her a realistic view, because I had to mentally prepare her for the fact that if she goes to Employment Tribunal, it's not going to be easy. It could go on for weeks. She might not get a court date this year, especially because they still have backlog from COVID and the height of the pandemic. I said to her, you need to go with an open hand. You need to be ruthless, but you need to be open. Don't be greedy. So the mediator asked her a question, and it was a question from the other side. What do you want? Now, you've got to remember, when she made her grievances and told all the issues, I deliberately told her to not tell them what she wants to settle this. It's important she just lays out the facts, because to me, it's clear what she wants. But lay out the facts and provide the supporting evidence. And she said to me, why do I want to take that approach? I said, because there will come a point where they'll realize, if they're sensible, that their chances of success is less than 50%. And at that point, that's when they're going to come and ask you what you want. And that's exactly what happened. So she said, Toya, they've asked me what I want. I said, what do you want? Then she started going on about her feelings, her emotions. I said, I don't care about that right now. They are valid, but for the purposes of what this is, we're not doing that. She said, I want all my bonuses backdated to when I started, and I want them to give me a bonus structure letter. So I said, okay, let's take this step by step. So she wrote to ACAS, to her mediator. She said she wants her bonus structure letter to start with. Within 2 days, they provided her bonus structure letter. I said, okay, great. I said, now we get to quantify your bonuses. Because there were some bonuses that were paid, but based on this structure, they weren't paid in full. So what we want them to do is use this structure to backdate all your bonuses. I said to her, that your ex-employee, your colleague now who's about to leave, ask her for her bonus structure letter. My friend asked her for the bonus structure letter. Till today we're talking to you. That so-called colleague friend didn't provide us with that. So we couldn't even compare whether it was whether it was the same that a colleague has, or the accuracy of it. We couldn't authenticate the accuracy of it. We just had to accept that was what it was. Because I asked her as well, does it look reasonable according to what you do? But for me personally, I needed to sense check it. That colleague friend of hers, radio silence. This is a person you ate lunch with every day. This is the person you actually jointly made sales together. This is a person that's desk was in front of yours. This is a person that for almost 2 years, you two were living inside of each other's pockets. Okay, cool. Do you remember the conversation I had with her in her office? I warned her. No problem. Then, we requested they backdate her salary up until the point in which they believe she passed her probation, which was 3 months. We also requested reference. Now, they said that they're willing to give standard reference. We said no. We will draft what we believe is a standard reference. And anytime you're requested to provide her a reference, this is the standard reference you give. And you have to confirm that this is a standard reference. So I drafted a reference. They agreed. They agreed then to the backdating of the bonus. They agreed to the backdating of her salary. Then they said that there's a few things that they want. So we said, okay, why don't you draft us an offer? Based on what we have requested, draft us an offer. They drafted the offer. And they drafted it in a non-disclosure agreement. Now, within that non-disclosure agreement, it also included a few things from their side. One, she's not allowed to disclose how much they paid her. Two, she's not allowed to go to the press. Yeah, because in her grievance complaint, she said that she reserves the right to go to the press. Yeah, I told her to put that in there, just so they know that we can whistle blow it. Thirdly, they said that they're gonna so basically they drafted something that basically said that the bonus is tax-free, but they reserve the right to seek any tax that it needs to be paid in accordance to the requirement of HMRC in the future. Bullshit, innit? Bullshit. And then they said that they consider this settlement in the non-disclosure agreement a full and final settlement of this case, and therefore she cannot take them to any employment tribunal or any court. So I said to my friend, hello, this only is for the employment stuff. The fraud is criminal. You can't now in a non-disclosure agreement include criminal stuff. So I said to my friend, just ignore them. This is bullshit. I said, just ignore that. Just ignore them. Anyway. I said to my friend, we need to renegotiate this non-disclosure agreement, this confidentiality agreement, sorry. We need to renegotiate it. I said, okay. We accept this cost. But they said that they're going to pay it in 21 days. I said to my friend, is that acceptable for you? She says, no. They can't pay in 21 days. She wants it sooner. I said, when do you want it by? She said she want it in 10 days. I said, okay. Then you tell them you want it in 7 days. She said, why? I said, because then there's two things they might do. They either one, accept the 7 days to pay the settlement cost in full. They either pay on the 7th day, or they may opt to suggest to pay it in 14 days. And if they do, then you say, no, I want it in 10 days. Because then you look like you're compromising with them. But really and truly, the minimum you're going to accept, absolute minimum, is 10 days. But you really want 7. She said, okay, no problem. I said, also, this clause about tax is bullshit. It's tax-free. And they have to accept full liability of any future tax required to be paid on this by HMRC. They have to accept liability. This is called a settlement. They can't settle you and then HMRC comes after you. It's like a double whammy. I said, no, it's bullshit. No, this is called settlement. They have to settle you. Not settle you for now so HMRC will come and find you later. That's bullshit. I said, thirdly, you accept that this is full and final settlement of any future employment tribunal or any future pursuit of any future claim within the employment tribunal. As you have to be very clear about that, because we still haven't dealt with the fraud. She said, okay, no problem. So when I renegotiated it, we redrafted it, I made my comments, I edited it. She then had a look at it, sent it to ACAS. So she messaged Zara and she said, Zara, it looks like I'm going to settle. She messaged Zara. She said, Zara, it looks like we may settle this case, but they may not accept the negotiation. If they don't, then I'm going to have to take them to employment tribunal. So I'm just letting you know, in case there's no settlement, then we have to go to court. Zara called her. Zara said, how are you doing this? She said, oh, one of my friends, she's a consultant, she does contracts, that's her thing. And she's very well versed in employment issues, in employment matters. So she's advising me. She's the one that got it to this point with me. So if we go to employment tribunal, my friend said that she'll be there. And I'm going to self-represent with her support. Zara went quiet. Then she said, well, even though I'm dealing with the civil side, there's still the criminal side of the fraud. And to be honest, I haven't decided whether I'm going to pursue it. But depending on how hard they play with this mediation. I may have to consider it because I'm not going to have them mistreat me the way they have done and then fraudulently sign 2 documents and think they're going to get away with it. So Zara's quiet now. Then Zara said to my friend, oh, I really need to speak to you about something. She said, what is it? She said, well, you know our old boss, so your probation thing, he was saying that how as a team we're going to be audited and stuff, so he was going through our files and everything, and he said there was a few things that you didn't sign, so he asked me to sign it on your behalf. My friend said, pardon? She said, yeah, he asked me to sign on your behalf, so I signed it, but I didn't think it was anything big. So my friend said, what do you mean you didn't think it was anything big? If you didn't think it was anything big, why have you waited almost a year to tell me? Because I don't understand that. I mean, after all, we shared the same office. I've been to your house. You've been to my house. You even give me a witness statement for this case. Why are you only telling me this now? She went quiet. She said, you see, if you go to the police with this or you report the fraud, it's going to be me that's going to be in trouble. Because I'm the one that signed it. So my friend said, why are you telling me this now? She goes, well, I've been meaning to tell you, but it seems as this case is going on, it could end up in Employment Tribunal, and then, the workplace that they work at, if they know that I did a statement, then they may use that statement against me in the court. My friend said, you know what? I need to speak to my friend and I'll come back to you. My friend called me and told me. My friend went quiet. As she's telling me this, you can tell she will say one word, she'll go quiet. She'll say one word, she'll go quiet. I said, listen, friend, what did I tell you at the start of this thing? I said, the people that you're starting out with here are not going to be the people you end up with. I said, but you know what the most dangerous thing is? If this went to Employment Tribunal, they would have used the fact that she fraudulently signed something without your knowledge. And they would have used it to discredit her as a witness to the things that she's testifying that would support your case. So what she would have done is undermined your Employment Tribunal case, because she would be seen as an unreliable witness because of the fraud that she committed. I said, the second thing is, this is somebody that you call your friend. How can she do something like that? How can somebody sign something that she knows is not you? She will sign your name. I said, my dear, you need to go through your bank statements, because you need to see whether she used your bank card to do tap. Yeah. I said, nobody's using chip and pin anymore. Maybe she use your card to tap. I said, my sister, in my country, I told this girl, in my country, we have a saying that you use long spoon to eat with somebody like that. That Zara is dangerous. Dangerous, danger, dangerous. I told her. I said, what is this? But the thing is with me is I still have to be focused on the mission at hand. And I couldn't allow my friend to focus on what Zara had told her, because I realized something. When God's glory is getting ready to manifest itself, when the ancestors are tying a bow on greatness, the devil will always try you. Always. And this was the devil trying to try my friend. Because the anger, the upset, the stress of all of this, she could have mashed up this thing that we're negotiating here. Because she could have turned around and said, actually, the money that you've offered me, I want 10 times as much. She could have said anything she wanted, because she's already angry now. She's realizing that in a way, she don't know who's working with her. She don't know. The only person she can be sure of in this situation is me. And she knows it. She said it to me yesterday. Anyway, my dears, ACAS came back today. And they accepted all the amendments to the confidentiality agreements. They're gonna pay my friend in 7 days. They're gonna pay any tax, whether in the future they're gonna pay that tax. They accepted the standard wording that I drafted for a standard reference. They will also refrain from any disparaging comments about my friend, whether to future staff or to anybody within the industry. They also agreed to pay her in lieu of notice. You heard it, in lieu of notice. And they agreed to pay for 10 therapy sessions. Yes, because my friend has experienced trauma, they need to pay 10 therapy sessions for her. So that's 10 invoices for therapy, a therapist of her choice, to deal with the workplace trauma that she encountered as an employee. The entire settlement figure is just shy of £50,000. Yeah. My friend was screaming today on the phone. Screaming. Because when she started this, she didn't think she'll get more than maybe 15,000, 20,000. Because a percentage of that is actually what was owed for her bonus. The circus that is the world of work. It's a circus. My friend also passed her driving test last week. So in the midst of all this, remember I told you the devil would try, but the devil tried my friend. Imagine of all the times to tell my friend it's in the middle of a confidentiality agreement negotiation. You've come to tell my friend. Also as well, as part of the confidentiality agreement, there was a letter of apology from her line manager in relation to the alcohol bottles found in the bin that she took a picture of. They withdrew any inference to suggest that it was my friend that drank the alcohol in the office. And also they scrubbed her record because they put that alcohol incident in the record. They scrubbed it. Yes, they scrubbed it off. I'm telling you right now that the other side, that organization's lawyer told them that their possibility of winning in Employment Tribunal is slim. So they're better off settling out of court. Because if they go to Employment Tribunal, it won't just be 50,000. It'll be 50,000 plus any, if she decided to get a lawyer, they'll have to pay for legal costs. They'll have to pay for any expenses that she would have made to go to Employment Tribunal. They would have paid a lot of money. Shy of £50,000 is less, is actually more attractive than what they would have paid in Employment Tribunal. But you know the greatest thing ever? My friend didn't spend one dime on a lawyer. She didn't spend not 1p on a lawyer. Because I told her, if you get an employment lawyer, they will finish all your money here. Maybe you could have claimed the cost, but if I was the other side, I would have said, no, we each of us will respectively pay the lawyer. You know, that type of thing. They could have put their foot down. My friend trusted me to do what I do best. And that was to, number one, support her, but actually lead her in getting the result that she wanted. Because I knew she had a good case. I saw that burn. When I read the contents of that burn folder, I said to my friend, you really listen to my podcast? You really take note of my podcast? I said every conversation, she will follow up with an email. Every conversation, even the ones that will seemingly look innocent, she'll follow up with a conversation. Because she kept saying to me, these people don't like me, so why are they talking to me? They need to put in a writing. My friend is extremely exhausted. The bags underneath her eyes, I'm so sorry. You see those brown paper bags they give everybody in Boots? That's how her eyelids, that's how they look. My friend used to be a size 16. She's now a size 10. The girl has lost weight though. This thing has taken everything from her. I said, even that your fat reserve is gone. She's lost weight. This is just ACAS. I said to her, what do you think would have happened if you go to Employment Tribunal? What do you think? Because I'm telling you, I also told my friend, listen, if we had to go to Employment Tribunal, you would have had to pay my day rate. Because if you're taking me from my day to go there, you have to pay me. Sorry. Anyway, my friend has also offered me payment for my time and everything from her settlement figure. But I said no. I know some of you are going to think I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. When you do the Lord's work, the payment is in the blessings. My blessings are more than that 50,000 or shy of 50,000. My blessings are more than that. I said to her, I do want you to pay me. She said, yes, Toya, name it, I'll pay you. I said, I'd like you to pay me in prayers. I need prayers? She said, what do you mean? I said, I need prayers. She said, but Toya, I says, I need prayers. I'd like prayers. That's my currency. To be able to help you is also an honor for me. I've learned so much through this process, but I also get to take this process and share it on my podcast, because there are so many women that are going to learn from this situation. There's so many women that are going to understand that you have to remove emotion when you're dealing with these clowns. Because if you're in a circus, you can't... Listen, if you're in a circus, you can't do what the clowns are doing. You have to be as wise as a serpent and as cunning as a snake to deal with these people. My friend trusted me. I think for me, that meant the world. Because she knew that I had her best interest at heart. After all, this is not my case. I said to her as well, no offense to her, I said, listen, my platform is 2 black women, 4 black women, about black women. I center black women in what I do. But be under no illusion. The lessons from here is gonna guide, teach, and educate my fellow black women. So that in itself is worth more than the settlement figure. Also as well, from my perspective, I can say one of my biggest wins has been a settlement that is literally shy of 50,000. I said to her, listen, if it wasn't for the fact that sometimes you're a loose cannon, I would have negotiated this to 50k. Because it's only a couple of thousand shy of it for her feelings and distress and emotion. But I kind of felt like, you know, we were onto a good thing. Sometimes you have to also know when to withdraw. And we literally, the negotiation I did with them, they listen, they know that they were dealing with a big dog. I'm not playing with them. Coming to tell my friend, hey, you're going to pay in 21 days. And if there's any future tax, we reserve the right for HMRC to come after. Are you mad? Someone you're paying settlement, you're still telling them you may be flogged later. We will flog you now. How about you pay the tax on that? So my friend literally makes shy of £50,000 as a settlement figure for this case. I said to her, see how the ancestors work. You've now passed your test. You can go get your car for your new chapter. My friend had pre-booked a holiday about 6 months ago. So she's going on holiday towards the end of this month. The ancestors had aligned this. They need her to go and rest. Go and rest. The likelihood of success for this was very high. Solely because my friend listened and her burn folder was down pat. That burn folder, excuse me, I swear to God, that's the best burn folder I've ever seen. Sorry, it's the best. The best. Because anytime she says, Toya is this, I said, where's the evidence? She'll, pium. Toya is this. I said, where's the evidence? Fium. Toya is this. Fium. Everything. Fium, fium, fium. It came in quick. Because the way I was examining the grievance, examining certain things, I had to go into a lot of detail. Because remember, when we were going through the grievance process, the settlement that we wanted, yeah, you know, we want them to backdate this, we want them to do this, we wanted them to do this. But when you're going to mediation, the reason why I had to really interrogate everything is because you've got to remember, if she goes to Employment Tribunal, they will ask for the from the mediator information from the mediation. They'll ask the mediator also for any documents, and my friend reserves the right to then use that information in employment tribunal. So it's important that I interrogate the hell out of it. And also, you're trying to build a case so that I can tell her, if we went to the employment tribunal, the likelihood of success. You know when I knew that she was going to get paid a lot of money? It was when they asked her what she wants. That's like a blank check. They know what she wanted because she told them at grievance process what she wanted. And what she wanted, she asked for specific things. So, for example, she wanted her bonus structure letter. She wanted all those things. But what we did in the grievance process is, we didn't say, oh, we want settlement, we want this. We didn't go into that detail. She just wanted the wrongs of her employment contract to be put right. But it seems that they didn't get that message, because all they wanted to do is increase her salary in line with passing her probation. No. So when they came to say, what do you want? I said to my friend, this nice blank check. And I had to not just think about the here and the now. It's the future. It's the access to a reference. And I wanted to hold them accountable for that reference. And yeah, they could have drafted like a standard one, but I wanted to hold the pen so that my friend knows what type of reference she's going to get. And also as well, she also reserves the right to ask any future employer to disclose the contents of any reference that they provide. It's in there, that non-disclosure, in that confidentiality agreement. It's in there. You see, I had to think ahead. And I feel as though part of this is, yes, it's experience, but you have to also be one step ahead of these people. Sometimes you can get so consumed with emotion that you're thinking about the here and now. If I allowed my friend, all she will think about is that money. She's not thinking about tax on that money. She's not thinking about when they give her that money. 21 days. No, a big multi-million pound company like that, it's not going to be 21 days. Go and speak to your bank manager. Release that money back to transfer within 7 days. And it's not just 7 days, it's 7 business days. We don't want to include weekend to prolong this stress. No. You have to understand how to deal with these people. All this emotion that a lot of you are bringing, it's not going to work. I'm sorry. These people are willing to employ a lawyer to tell them what they already know. So on top of this money they're paying my friend, they're paying the lawyer and have to pay for all those people that were part of this thing, innit? What a big waste of money. These people are so stupid because they could have settled this, my friend, at grievance stage. It would have been a lot more cheaper than this settlement figure that we've just negotiated. I don't want my friend's money. I make my own money. I need blessing. If you are my friend, sorry. If you're my friend, I have your back the way you have mine. My friend has my back. That's my paddy. If I tell you what that friend has done for me in this life, my paddy. And God so kind, I'm able to repay her with the same kindness she showed me. Her husband, my God, the husband doesn't play around with me. Where's Toya? How is she? If I'm winning, my friends got to win. Sorry, my friends have to win. I don't have a lot of friends, but the quality and substance of my friends is beyond measure. My friends can't be going through hell at work. And I'm a subject matter expert when it comes to these things, and they come to me and I can't help them. So when I tell you that I was on the edge of a breakdown, it's because these are the things I'm handling outside of you lot and seeing what I'm doing. You guys are not seeing all the stuff that I'm doing. So I'm managing a mediation for settlements. I'm doing podcasts. I'm doing my businesses. I'm doing this. I'm a busy babe. And I have to also say there's a relief in this as well, because that's one thing I can tick off my box. This was not a short thing. This has been going on for quite a few months, because remember we started at grievance stage, because you have to exhaust every avenue domestically, i.e. grievance procedure within your employment contract, before you can even think of going to ACAS. ACAS, I learned a lot about their processes, which has changed a lot over the years. I found the mediation quite seamless in the way we dealt with it, and the communication was very, very, very good. And the forms that we had to complete were very much straightforward. My friend is the one that sent me the forms. I was the one that did the forms. Sent it to her to review. Then she sends it on. And it was very much a learning curve for me as well in terms of employment and things like that. And having to also do some personal research about employment legislation and things like that. But yeah, because I had to pack it in there just to let them know that my friend's not stupid. We're not here to play. And even if we're here to play, we're playing by our rules. What's all that? What made it easier to do, like in terms of my friend as well, is that she was an exemplary employee. Her stats spoke for itself. And even when there were some challenges within her employment, for example, maybe she didn't make target 1 month, the fact of the matter is, if you look at the trend across a year, she was the highest salesperson within the team. The bit that my friend has to also deal with in therapy, which I'm not going to lie to you, I said to her, one of the best parts of this settlement is the therapy that they're paying for. Because this trauma that you've experienced here, you also have to unpack the betrayal of your friend. This is a betrayal. The fraud is a betrayal. It's a criminal offense. If my friend went to the police now, or to any fraud prevention something, Zara's in trouble. And luckily for her, my friend has just taken everything as a win and as a blessing. And she sees Zara's confession as a blessing in disguise, because my friend now realizes who is for her and who is not. And I said to her, karma never forgets an address. When God said vengeance is his, babes, step back. The way the blessings have just poured on my friend tells me that the karma will return to anybody that sought to sabotage this process that my friend was on. It's a lot. It's actually a lot. If you actually deep it, it's a lot. Some organizations will know they're wrong, but will still want to fight. Some organizations will know that there's no entry, but they will allow your case to get to ACAS before they settle. And that will just tell you how much smoke they're on. And some of them have got shit lawyers. Because a proper lawyer, before they even take this case, will tell them the chance of success. Because that's what I did with my friend. I had to do a risk assessment. Listen, before I'm going to invest my time, I have to do a risk assessment. And my risk assessment, when I looked at everything, did my research, I told my friend, your chances of success is 90%. But if you don't listen to me and you're on this road of emotion, it's 50. And I'm not here on a 50-50 train. Sorry. Hey. Anyway, let's move on to the mailbox, the dilemmas. And I want to start with a dilemma that is relevant to this episode. Okay. This one is called What Happens at Employment Tribunal. Good morning, Toya. I hope you are well. I've been using everything you've taught us in the podcast to fight this situation at work. I am extremely proud of myself for stepping up and standing up for myself. But Toya, I could not have done this without the knowledge that you have so kindly passed on to all of us. Thank you so much. This situation started when my head teacher merited a disciplinary investigation against me. It then escalated to me raising a grievance, to now appealing the outcome of the grievance. However, I have to now take it even further and go to Employment Tribunal, as they are still moving mad. Their madness and violence has expanded beyond belief. You have not touched on employment tribunals much, and I would really appreciate some tips when it comes to that process. Thank you so much in advance. Summary of my situation. My head teacher the head teacher of the organization, she's a teacher basically. The head teacher put me on disciplinary because of a student reports on my social media. He admitted to never seeing these reports or knowing if they even exist. The investigation questions at my investigation meeting were disgusting. The senior manager even used the N-word in full when asking a question. An independent officer investigated my grievance. He came up with findings and conclusions that were not even based on facts or evidence. For example, HR apparently approved my investigation questions, including the use of the N-word. When I asked for written confirmation, they could not prove it. The report also contained the senior manager refusing to be as having a black personality. She also stated that there was a video with my little sister on TikTok. According to her, I was showing that I was out blacked in that video. The senior manager is the person I raised the grievance against. She is known for writing emails in purple font. Last week I received a purple font email from the head teacher about the conclusion of my grievance. I could not believe it. Okay, bullying. This is a very small percentage of the madness going on. Therefore, I would really appreciate tips and tricks for Employment Tribunal. I will not stop until I finish them, in the same way they have tried to finish me. P.S. I don't even have a job lined up in September because of these people, but God has better plans for me. The comeback is going to be disrespectful. With regards. So I think that this episode, hey, see how the ancestors love you. This episode is going to help you a lot, tremendously. Now, the reason why I haven't spoken much on employment tribunals is there is trauma attached to that, and that's what I'm going to say on that. Secondly, I'm also going to say the goal should not be employment tribunal. It should be the last resort. So I'm going to encourage you to use ACAS in the same way that my friend has. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I help my friend because this is my friend and I know her very well, and I trust her, and she's my friend. And I don't offer consultancy services to individuals. I do business to business consultancy. What I will say is I'm quite happy for you to ask me questions. That's fine. But you need to really do a risk assessment. And maybe it's a case of taking a step back from the situation, because when you start to include social media, I've got quite a few questions for you myself. Now, bearing in mind that this isn't everything, and you even say that there's a lot more to this situation, my initial questions to you will be, how do they have access to your social media? How do they even know that your sister was on TikTok or not on TikTok? How has this social media thing, how have they had access to this information? Because what I'm going to tell you is, if I was advising them, I would be building a case against you. So I would be using said social media to do that. So my question to you is, have they got access? Listen, I've got social media. I'm a consultant. Nobody has access to my social media. No one. Listen, I was on a whole Big Brother, and I've been navigating going to where no one knows. Because I genuinely believe that you can separate your personal life from your working life. And I remember there was a dilemma of somebody who had an issue based on their social media. And you all need to start separating things. Start separating things, because I'm not happy that amongst any issue that you may have here, that even social media is even involved. I don't like that. Secondly of all, the writing in purple font, which was part of your grievance, then the head teacher writes in purple font. That's basically saying fuck you. Let's be honest. And I agree that it needs to be taken further, especially if you've exhausted all avenues in terms of the internal grievance procedure. But it's not straight to Employment Tribunal. You have to go to ACAS, www.acas.org.uk. So I'll encourage you to go to that website. I will also get my assistant Jennifer to email you to let you know that this episode is now live, obviously addressing your dilemma. But going through ACAS and that experience, I've kind of given my opinion here. So I definitely think that this is very relevant to your dilemma. And I'm quite happy for you to table any questions that you have for me via email. I'm quite happy for that. But what I am going to say to you is, I get the emotion because this is happening to you. And I bear that in mind. And I know, I get it, right? Because we've all gone through this, a level of trauma employment. I get that. But when you now go down the grievance process, when you now go to ACAS and maybe even potentially Employment Tribunal, it's a lot of work, plus your day job, plus life. Yeah? You should now start thinking about what a settlement looks like for you. What are you actually seeking? Remember, when you guys email me dilemmas, I always ask you, what are you seeking out of this? And it needs to be the same in this situation that you have. What are you actually looking for? If somebody said to you, what do you need to be able to settle this so that both parties can move on amicably? What would you say? If your view of settlement is you want to get your own back, you've already lost, and your likelihood of success in Employment Tribunal is 0. Absolutely 0. Now, if you go through ACAS and there's no settlement, and then you make the decision to go to Employment Tribunal, fair enough. But then you need somebody to do an assessment of your likelihood of success, because that will then feed into your final decision of whether to go to Employment Tribunal. Because if your likelihood of success is 50-50, yes, you can still go, but you need to be very clear about what that looks like. So for me, like even with organizations that I've worked with in the past and they have HR issues and they ask me to do a review, I do a risk assessment based on the evidence I have, because I'm the impartial party here. I don't know any of these people. And they can take my recommendation and they can't. But I'm telling you, if the likelihood is 50-50, you really better hope you have a strong case, a burn folder, and a hell of a lot of evidence. And you've got to remember, the other side are going to try to discredit you. And if they discredit you, they discredit the reliability on the evidence before the Employment Tribunal. If your credibility is called into question, the likelihood of success is slim, because that means the Employment Tribunal will not have confidence in the truthfulness of your case, your testimony, and you have to be very careful. Because sometimes the key to a successful outcome can be based on credibility. Do you understand? It can be based on credibility. I have had friends who have gone to Employment Tribunal and lost. I have had my own experiences when I was younger, which, to be quite honest with you, if I knew then what I know now, things would have been really different. Things would have been really different. And you've got to remember, you're going before an Employment Tribunal. The likelihood of the people that are hearing your case, they're white. Most of them are white. So you're also confronting their own prejudices. They will say, oh, we're here, impartial, impartial what? They're not, even when you have jury selections in a criminal case, the jury there, they have their own experiences, they have their own perception, they have their own ideologies. Is it any different? Judges in Employment Tribunal? No, it's not, because they're still human. You cut them, they bleed, they're human beings. So you've got to remember these things. And I warned my friend, you're going to Employment Tribunal, your case is blah, 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 blah. These are your heads of claim. But you've got to bear in mind every aspect of your case. And you have to be able to look at it holistically and be honest with yourself. Now, I agree, it's very difficult when you're in it to then have a impartial view about your case. But there's a reality here. You have to be able to look at your evidence properly. This episode is going to help you decide your next steps. But I think your next step, if you've exhausted everything from a grievance process, then you need to go to ACAS. And there's an episode, I'll find an episode where I had a grievance complaint and I read out my grievance complaint. And it was very succinct. Everything had a heading, had the issue, the evidence, the issue, the evidence. It has to be like that. No one's looking for a 4-page letter. You understand? It needs to be succinct. My friend's letter was 2 pages. It was 2 pages because there was a lot that went on for over a year. So hopefully that helps you. I will, of course, remember to ask Jennifer to come back to you and let you know this episode exists and that I've read your dilemma. The second dilemma that we have is entitled Dilemma in Between Jobs After Leaving a Toxic Workplace. Hi Toya, I hope you're well. I've recently left a role which was within a toxic department and organization as my mental health and physical health was being impacted negatively by the toxic work environment. I am now feeling much better, but I'm still interviewing for roles a few months after leaving my previous role. Grateful if you could please advise on tips for applying for roles whilst in a job you no longer enjoy, as I would like to avoid leaving before securing a role in the future in order to avoid a gap in work. Okay, so if you listen to the CV Masterclass, I do address gaps in the workplace, but for the purposes of your dilemma, I'm willing to address it again. And what I will say is, first of all, I need you to give yourself grace, because being able to look for a new job, knowing that you're in a toxic environment, really is commendable, because it's acknowledging that you deserve more and you deserve better. That's the first thing. Secondly, sometimes it's often difficult to have a break in between roles because of financial constraints. Some people also, from a mental health perspective, some people don't like to have gaps because they need to continue to keep active for their own mental health. And secondly, for the reasons you've just described here of not wanting or avoiding having work gap. I'm going to say that long are the days that where gaps are looked down negatively on people. But I also say and caveat that by saying that it's easier to find a job when you're already in a job. It's just weird. I don't know whether it's just the energy that comes across in a job interview, knowing that you already have a job and looking for a new one. What I would say in terms of giving you advice about applying for roles where you're no longer enjoying your current role is you need to write a list of the things that you're looking for in a new role. You see, for me, looking for a new role is more than just interviewing. It's about creating a picture of the type of role you want next. So for example, in last week's episode, I shared with you all that I'm also considering maybe even going perm. The decision is not set in stone, but it's something I'm thinking about. So I wrote a list of all the non-negotiables I'd be looking for in my next role if it were to be perm. And then I found that I started to enjoy the job hunting process, i.e. looking at roles, updating my CV, having a conversation with recruiters, because now I had a clear picture of what my next role would look like. So I had a list that I wanted to manifest. Secondly of all, I find that when you're proactively looking for a new role, it makes your current role less painful. Even though it's still painful, it's just not as painful as if you don't have other options. What I will also say is I have often found in the past in toxic work environments and then looking for a new role is that sometimes the weight of toxicity in your current role can weigh so heavily that actually it becomes laboursome to then look for a new role. And what I will say is you need as much as possible to build in some respite between roles. I never ever support the idea that you will leave one role and go to another, whether that role is toxic or not, because there needs to be an opportunity for you to decompress, and it needs to be an opportunity for you to kind of mentally make the shift from one organization to another. Unfortunately, the issue is that you're going to be working through your previous work trauma in your new role. And I feel like when you're in a toxic environment, there's an attack on your self-esteem, your confidence, and I definitely would encourage you as much as possible to try to build in, so for example, if you get a job offer to start, I don't know, so what are we in now, July? Say you have a job offer and they ask you to start in September. For example, I would hand in my notice like end of July, say for a 4 weeks notice. Then I would have a few weeks before I start my new role, because I think you need that time. I also encourage therapy. I've always said it. I feel as Black women, we need to go to therapy just generally anyway. I think because of the way society just treats us, depicts us. But from a workplace perspective, I think that therapy needs to be a requirement for all Black women in the world of work. I definitely have found therapy very useful, but even more so from the perspective of working through workplace trauma. I've had a lot of workplace trauma, especially my 20s, my early 20s. I went through so much. Honestly, like when I look back at it, there's some stuff I haven't even been able to discuss on a podcast because I definitely have felt like I had to do a lot of work to get even to the point where I'm even considering talking about it on the podcast. You understand? And remember, what about the stuff I have experienced over the last few years? Do you understand? So I feel like the trauma never really stops for us. And sometimes we go into like a state of like PTSD at work. We go through that state. But then the dangerous part of it is we also know that your next role, something may happen to trigger a response from you of something you experienced in the previous role. So I definitely would encourage therapy. I would also say that it's really, really important that you take a step back and really reevaluate your next move from the perspective of what are your career objectives? What is it that you're trying to achieve here? Because once you do that, you start to focus your mind on your next opportunity and you start looking forward to your next opportunity. What I feel like is not given enough credit is the importance of structuring your career. I've said it here all the time, and I always say you have to look at your career like a project. And until you provide structure to that project, you're not going to feel confident about your next move. That confidence comes from you really thinking about your objectives, your non-negotiables, and it also comes from accepting where your limitations sit. So for example, if you know that you may need further training in something or an area within your field, that's something that you would look for in a role. So for example, you'll go to interview and ask them about training and incorporate anything that's promised in an interview in your employment contract. Do you understand? I'm not going to ever take away from the fact that being in a toxic environment, looking for a new job, listen, it's a lot. It's heavy because also as well, how do you switch off that heaviness when you're going to an interview? It's almost like you carry that with you, you know? So you need to find your non-negotiables. You need to find structure in your next role. And also as well, you need to give yourself grace to feel. I'm not going to sit here and, make it sound like it's, whimsical. It's not. Like, the reality is, as Black women, our work experiences are laced in trauma. It's laced in trauma. It's in trauma. And we are operating often from a place of trauma in our workplaces. There's never any rest. So you have to forcibly build that rest. And that rest comes from therapy. It also comes from respite in between jobs. Stop jumping from one job to another. You need a break. Even if it's 2 weeks, you need a break in between. And I think you need to focus less on a gap in your CV. Because when you focus about not wanting a gap in your CV, what about the gap in your own mental well-being? I spoke at the beginning of this episode about almost having a breakdown. I had a pre-breakdown. And it wasn't a joke. If you really heard my voice last week episode, you could tell that I was on the brink of, I was on the edge, and it wasn't of glory. We go so hard, and the world is so much harder on us in the imagery, in how it depicts us, and then we're hard on ourselves again. So as I have tried as much as possible to create a safe space here in the Toy Tools podcast, we have to also create safe spaces within ourselves. And if that is the moral of my pre-breakdown last week, then it's a moral that I bring here. We need to create peace and safety within ourselves. It's really important. And I hope that helps you. Wow. What an episode. So I am going to draw this episode to a close. But before I do that, I have a couple of things I would like to add. I'm not setting any assignments, but I'm setting you homework. I really want you to go ahead on Netflix and watch Marriage or Mortgage, because I'm going to be delivering an episode about this, and it is going to be based on the Marriage or Mortgage show on Netflix. It's actually a series, and I think they've been commissioned for season 2, or has a season 2 gone live already? Anyway, I've watched it, and I'm going to re-watch the latest season. I think they've got a season 2. Anyway, I watched it last year. But in respect to the fact that, obviously, I got married last year, and then we had a COVID restricted registry wedding last year with 12 people. It was the best. I loved it. I love the fact that it wasn't that many people. I just loved it. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it now. I'll get into it in the episode when it's released. But also as well, it's really important that you go ahead and watch that series, even if it's a couple of episodes, because it will help bring to life the episode that I'll be delivering, which will be entitled Marriage or Mortgage. Also as well, I do want to encourage you all to self-care. I need to do more of it, and I'm doing it, but equally as well, I think it's important as Black women we give ourselves grace, because we have experienced a lot. We do experience a lot. And the world of work is a circus, and I don't really like clowns, so I don't find circuses much fun. And I think it's really important that, in as much as I create this safe space here at the Toy Talks podcast every Tuesday, we have to also sit in a lot of what is shared through other people's workplace dilemmas, and we also need to sit in, and listen and receive other people's experiences, so that when we find ourselves in that situation, we're able to know how to navigate it. That being said, I will repeat it again. The masterclasses, the Toy Talks Academy, whereby you have a dashboard. So once you sign up, you'll have a dashboard. Those people who have already bought masterclasses, you will have access to create a dashboard. You'll have a discount code where you're able to download your previously purchased masterclasses. Those people who have emailed and asked about masterclasses, which is on the current website, is now all sold out. Everything will be live on Friday, the 15th of July, 2022 at 6 p.m. It will be live. Oh my God, there's a mosquito. You must die today. I feel like this mosquito is somebody from the office. Sorry. So yeah, make sure you go on the website. I'm really excited for the masterclasses to relaunch. We've got 2 new masterclasses, the Resignation Masterclass and Passing Your Probation Masterclass. I'm really, really, really proud of those masterclasses. I'm really proud and glad that I took my time to record them. Where I needed to re-record, where I wanted to add more information, I have done so. They are ready to go. So I want to also thank my web developer as well, because he's been absolutely amazing. I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. The delays have been unforeseen. I don't blame anyone. I just take it as a learning process. And I'm just so grateful to be in a position now where I know that this day is solid and this is what we're going to do. Also as well, please follow me on social media. I'm very active on my personal Instagram page, which is Toya_Washington. The Toya Talks Instagram page is Toya_Talks. Of course, we are on Snapchat, which is Toya Washington, all one word. Also on Twitter, Toya_W with the hashtag Toya Talks Podcast or Toya Talks. And of course, we are also on TikTok, which is Toya Washington. Make sure you follow me on social media. Those of you who have a workplace dilemma, email hello@toytalks.com. In the subject box, write dilemma or whatever heading you want to give, but make it clear that it's a dilemma. Please be clear, straight to the point. And also as well, what is the outcome that you are seeking? That will help me to be able to understand how to advise you. Try and give as much information as possible. Keep it succinct and straight to the point. Anybody who wants to book me for any workplace, public speaking, talking about racism, talking about Black women navigating the world of work and work-related issues, then make sure you email hello@toytalks.com. We are taking bookings for September onwards, because your girl is booked and busy in that order. And yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I can't wait to receive my new laptop. I'm so excited. I'm very much excited. Also as well, I also have my YouTube channel, At Home with Toya. So go ahead and have a watch of the latest vlog that I uploaded a couple of days ago. Thank you so much for listening. make sure you share the podcast, share the episodes. If you know that you have a friend or somebody you know, a family member, anybody who you think that can benefit from the Toy Talks podcast and platform, please share the podcast, this episode or any previous episodes with them. If there is a workplace dilemma, maybe it's not even yours, maybe it's a friend's, make sure you email in. Your anonymity will be protected, and of course I will do my best to help and deliver my own, words of wisdom, if you like. And thank you so much as always for joining me. Thank you for your support. I will see you all next week for a brand new episode of the Toy Talks podcast. My name is Toy Washington, and you have been listening to the Toy Talks podcast.